and welcome to the first episode of the official SPT podcast. I'm Meredith McHale.
And I'm Alyssa Armstead.
And one day you're gonna get that cue, baby. I feel it.
Oh, am I late? Okay, it's not that delayed from my perspective.
I think it's because
I'll start saying it like before you're done saying your name.
That's then it's gonna sync up all of a sudden, and I'm gonna be like, I'm Meredith. I'm Alyssa Armstead. No, that's great.
Okay.
Today we're gonna talk about a whole number of things. We've got a good list.
A whole bunch of crap.
I think we should start the whole shebang off introducing our paraNOTnormal experiences. Because I do think that gives some context to anybody who might be watching or listening to future episodes. Like, I think in some sense I might be a little bit strangely more skeptical than you about some things. But like, we're both definitely skeptics. We have questions and recognize that there are no clear answers to most of this. And we're not, as much as I like to talk about us putting on our tinfoil hats or our woo-woo caps, it's not like we've had, personal experiences or anything at a young age that would make us immediately think, oh, ghosts exist for sure. I grew up watching Ghost Hunters and Sixth Sense and these different, scary movies and shows and things like that. And it always fascinated me. I always believed, I suppose, but it wasn't something that affected my daily life other than I was watching these shows way too young and way too close to bed and subsequently had many nightmares. Still do. I was raised in a Methodist household and not particularly uber religious parents. I was encouraged to go to youth group and be involved mostly for the community, but I was also, I think, known as the girl that they didn't, the counselors and such, they didn't really want me speaking up in group a lot because I had a lot of questions and skepticism regarding God and religion and all of these things. It wasn't something that I started considering. I definitely wouldn't have considered myself like a ghost hunter, a gunter, if you will, ever until maybe the last year or so that we've been talking about it. About 4 or 5 years ago, I started putting in more research and reading a lot more about parapsychology and the study of consciousness and the human brain and its relation to this sort of dark matter or energy that I always had suspicions of, right? This kind of, again, this sixth sense, not necessarily I see dead people way, but in a way that is related to the laws of karma and morality and religion around the world and how it all ties together. Now, today, I have many friends who have gifts that I don't even have. I'm chased by orbs all the time, and literally 3-4 months ago, I can't remember how far away September is at this point, 4 months ago. If you had asked me 5 months ago if I thought orbs meant anything, I would have told you, no, I think it's just dust or, some kind of artifact, right? From cameras, from lighting, etc. But since that first investigation at the firehouse, like, we've been on FaceTime calls and there are orbs flying around me. Like, it's bizarre. And I have a roommate who does see spirits. And I'm sure we'll have her on at some point to describe what she says, but it's been interesting living with her as I've started doing more research and investigation into parapsychology, because she's almost felt this immense relief. I remember when I first brought it up to her, she said, "I'm so glad you said something about how many spirits are following you all the time, because when I first moved in, they seriously caught me off guard. I was not expecting that. And our bedrooms are right next to each other." And she's like, "They kept coming into my room." And I was like, "Why didn't you tell? I would have told them to back the fuck off," which I have since done. And I told them they need to be especially respectful of her space, because if you're not attached to her, like, you guys bother me all the time, but I put up with it, right? But kind of drawing those boundaries, laying those lines. And it's interesting to hear her talk about the spirits that she sees around me and how they interact with me and I interact with them, even without, like, I don't hear them. So there's a lot there that basically just says, I have no more answers than I did before, but I'm asking the questions now.
I had a completely opposite start to you, because I was raised Baptist. I don't think you're allowed to make that face.
I'm sorry. It was me screaming in gay.
Yeah, Black Baptist. So God, my mom's right out there. Jesus. I had to go to church as a kid. I don't think I ever got into religion more than just like being intrigued by the mythology aspect of it, which I didn't realize until I started learning about like actually Greek mythology and other religions.
Mm-hmm. That's what does it.
I was like, yeah, this is cool, whatever.
When
like,
you start learning about humanities and world religions, past, present, future, it's like, how can, there's the gears start grinding where you're like, but how can this be true when there are so many other possibilities that make more sense in some ways, And one more, and sorry to interrupt you. What was I going to say? Oh, I didn't even think to mention, like, when we first met, you weren't like down my throat Christian by any means, but I was very outspokenly agnostic, and still am. And that's definitely something that's changed over time, has been, I remember when you, like, again, this was all in the last year or so, but when you said something about, like, I don't think you exclusively said, like, I'm not Christian anymore, or, like, I don't think, like, God does all that, whatever it is. I remember being like,
I mean, I felt that for longer than the last year, but like you said, we haven't really started talking about it. What I was getting into was like, I don't think I've ever been a Christian, to be quite honest, because like when I worked through it myself as a child, you think you are what you're told you are. And I was the best little one ever. I was like, I'm going to read the Bible and I'm going to read the whole thing. And I never got past Genesis because it was so hard to understand and kind of boring. But I had to do the whole spiel, Vacation Bible School.
Yeah, did you have to get confirmed?
Easter speeches. I got baptized.
Yeah, but did you also have to go through confirmation?
No, I got baptized.
Okay, but I got baptized and confirmed. I don't know if that's like...
I know, I'm just saying, in Christian Baptists, just get baptized.
Oh, that's why they call them Baptists, huh?
Well, I don't know that. I don't think I can officially claim that. And everyone out there is like, oh, actually, Baptists do that.
It's John Baptiste the Third.
But the second I got old enough for it to like start being boring, I was like, I don't want to be here anymore. That's when I stopped caring. And when I got old enough to like hear we'll say political things that I didn't agree with, I was like, oh, no, that's not true. I don't believe that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I stopped believing everything he was saying. And it was just something that I have to do. I would say a lot of Black kids at some point get to the point where I'm like, I just have to go to church. You don't really have it. You don't have a choice at all. Just something you do. And then the second I got old enough to start being like, no, actually, I'm not going to go, I stopped going. So
welcome
I
to
will
the
say,
wonderful freedom.
even without ever feeling like die hard, a follower of rules or whatever. I mean, I was a rule follower, but not in a religious sense. That's just something that happens when you're an anxious child. And I think that culture of religion maybe took advantage of the fact that I was an anxious child and left me with a lot of religious trauma that I had to get through. Probably the second decade of my life, I'd say. But I would say officially right now, I'm at the point where I'm like not affected by it consciously at all. To the point where I can put this opinion on the internet and not care that my family's gonna
Jesus is watching, Alyssa.
I mean, first of all, Jesus would love me.
Oh my God, yeah.
I don't even have even if I'm not claiming to be any specific religion, figureheads that people who actually follow the teachings of Jesus and not Paul or maybe anybody else, I don't have beef with you. If you're not bugging anybody else, I don't really care
well,
what
that's
you believe.
exactly what Jesus would have wanted. I mean,
Exactly.
this would be a whole other podcast. I'm sure we might touch on at some point, but did you ever have experience with paranormal prior to?
I did not, because I was so scared of everything as a child, even as someone who feels like I may or may not have been born with a little bit of sauce, a little bit of woo-woo juice. I rejected it for like the first 18 years of my life because I was so scared. I wouldn't even say the Ghostbusters song. It was like, I ain't afraid of no ghosts. I wouldn't say it because I was like, well, I don't want them to get the wrong idea. I most certainly am. And I always, even when I was like afraid of like paranormal experiences, I was respected. So I'm like, I was never approaching from a standpoint of like, I hate that stuff exists and keep it away from me. I was just like, I'm not equipped. I don't have enough knowledge to know what that is. I'm not equipped to deal with it. And without that knowledge, I just wanted to avoid it. But now that I'm like, I've processed a lot of fear and, like I said, religious trauma that I went through as a kid, I'll learn anything. I don't care. In fact, I want to learn it. I think this stuff is very fascinating. And it is actually more effective to me and my personhood than whatever organized religion I've read about. So I'm doing my own thing at this point. And that's that's all I have to say about that right now. Like we said, we will be talking about religion probably in another thing. But
maybe every single episode it will come up a lot. Touching back to what we were talking about earlier with varying religions and religion throughout history, it paints a varying picture of morality and natural law and what is good. I mean, as we've discussed privately before, a big thing that comes up is the golden rule and the fact that without communication between all of these religions throughout history, geographically everywhere, right? The foundational law has been of every, now whether that's actually followed or not, treat other people how you wish to be treated. Natural law is this idea that there is set morality. There are objective goods and objective bads. And that is something, as I've been preparing for this episode, that I've really been struggling with, because how can you claim that? Like, if killing is bad, right? Then killing any animal should be bad, which would be okay. Then you should be vegetarian. But then if killing is bad, then isn't plant life still life?
Pluribus. Yeah. My opinion on morality and how much of it we should use to like, okay, I feel like there's like universal law, like you said, natural law, and then there's personal standards or codes of morality.
And the
I
two can
think,
get very messy. Like it feels,
yes,
people are very passionate about their moralities.
because we have like, there's a lot of spectrums. Everything's on a spectrum. And so it's easy to pick like, or think just because you're on one side that there's no nuance, but there's always nuance. Like you said, killing is bad. But, there's a but. Sorry. Killing is okay sometimes if you like eating vegetables and animals and don't like fascists. It's okay sometimes. Being serious. My thing is, morality, like I said, varies from person to person, but the universal law has to be the same. So it's like killing is absolutely on one end of the spectrum and maybe pacifism is on another. However, I don't think that like, even if you believe in having a better or worse afterlife, that there is just no consideration for what caused you to do what you were doing,
Absolutely. And that's something we'll get into when we discuss near-death experiences and the life review and all things like that.
Yeah.
There is one thing I think that stands out to me in regard to objective good that I don't think you can make an argument against. I mean, I'm sure you can make an argument against it, but I'd happily refute it. I think that empathy is an objective good. You can have empathy for the most evil people in the world, the most evil things in the world, still be against them, but have some level of understanding or attempting to understand. I mean, at the end of the day, we're people. Some of us are really, really messed up people. But I know what it's like to be human, and I know what it's like to make mistakes and to be living, I know what it's like to be a dandelion.
It's like that Brooklyn Nine-Nine quote, or his like, cool motive, still murder. I think where a lot of people lose the plot is like, you can understand why somebody acts a certain way and not forgive or immediately excuse the actions.
Absolutely.
I can know that someone who's a predator may have experienced abuse as a child and is perpetuating the cycle. At that point, once you are creating new victims with the same thing that you think destroyed your psyche so badly in the first place that you act like a different person now, once you do that to somebody else, you can't do that. You can't be doing that. Sorry.
Well, and that's why I emphasize that it's what I'm talking about is the absolute good is empathy and not necessarily forgiveness. Because forgiveness, while I do think is incredibly powerful, and like we've talked about before, it's so important for others and for yourself. That's actually the only way in a lot of cases to move on from trauma and from different things and mistakes is self-forgiveness and self-reflection in that way. But that in and of itself is empathy toward yourself. Empathy is the core value with that. And I don't think that certain, every scenario has to be, for example, going back to religion, what Jesus said, if somebody smacks you, turn the other cheek. Like, no, maybe just like walk away. Like there are other methods of like, you don't have to smack them back. We don't have to go full eye for an eye, but like you could like de-escalate the situation, maybe walk away, question what happened to get you into that situation in the first place. Not saying it's your fault, but like what went wrong here? What can we learn from this?
In defense of chaos, however, I will say, while I will always recommend to people, obviously it's like case by case, maybe don't engage with someone you think is insane. I think it is also good for people who do insane things to other people, expecting me to not be insane in return, to sometimes experience someone who's also insane. I'm not going to say if somebody does something to you, do that back, or like, I'm personally a fan of people who like get their lick back in very weird ways, like mundane ways. I read something on Reddit. I mean, I don't use Reddit, but somebody told me about something that was
Who,
on
me?
Reddit.
I don't even know her.
But this guy was like, his neighbor got the HOA on his ass for having his trash cans on the street and fined him like $50. So he spent like the next year waking up at 3 a.m. every day and moving his trash cans over like 6 inches just to make him think he was going crazy, to the point where the guy ends up bringing out a priest. And I'm like, yeah, good for you. Because he didn't technically hurt him, but like, you don't just get to think that you get to do whatever you want and nobody's ever going to do anything back. I think it works out that there are some people who are going to teach that person a lesson. I don't, however, recommend one person being everybody's karma. I think that's not a good idea for that person specifically. But every once in a while, you know, if you feel safe, if there's a safe way for you to like, what'd you say? And then they're like, oh, I didn't know you were gonna.
Well, and I think part of why, you know, you hold that opinion and something that I think would be extremely common is because of, you know, your background as a Black woman, for one. Like,
Yeah,
I know that we've
proponent of being able to protect yourself,
right, and that's something, you know, I think that when we're talking about something more petty like the trash bag scenario, it's also important to bring up the logical and absolutely necessary applications of the same kind of principle of and the growing anger that I know we both feel regarding women's safety and minority safety, and especially look around us in this time right now. I mean, I'm lucky to be a little white lady, and in some respect, like, you're not lucky to be Black, but at least you don't look, you know, Hispanic right now, because anybody who does that's a very real threat, you know?
I would just also like to point out, yes, very true. There's no but. I'm not adding a but. I'm just saying, unfortunately for both of us, real talk, they're very much just targeting everybody now.
Oh, no, yeah. And like, we're next, we're
So,
right
like,
under on the list. They're coming soon.
I mean, they've always been killing Black people.
That's so true.
We know this. And a white woman literally just got shot.
That is so true. Also,
So-
they did just pass a bill. I think it's up for the Court of Appeals. I can't remember what state it was in. But they did just pass a bill that allows teachers to out transgender and queer students to their parents. So
I just had to bite my tongue to block a tangent.
I digress. This all kind of dips into what I spent a lot of time considering for this episode, which is instinct versus intuition, and trying to understand what the difference is between the two, because they do seem very interchangeable.
I have the definitions here if you'd like me to read.
Yes, read them. Read away.
Intuition says the ability to understand something immediately without the need for conscious reasoning. And then instinct is an innate, typically fixed pattern of behavior in animals in response to certain stimuli.
I was doing some research on this and their differences. Obviously, instinct is animalistic. It's this like monkey part of our brain, or anything, any animal, any creature that has. It feels like intuition because it's literally like the chemical response, all of these little triggers, all these unidentified, you know, and I'm sure if we sat down with a neurologist, they could tell us exactly what cognitive function is happening when, you know, you like feel, I don't even know how to describe it, the spidey sense almost, like.
Yeah, exactly that, actually.
It's the gift of fear. And, it's reactive and survival based and very tied to our physiology. There are physical elements that come with instinct based emotions or whatever, fears, etc. Like when you get goosebumps, or when you start sweating or anxious or something like that, that's all physical. Whereas intuition, there's some level of insight or connection to spirit, or an expanded self. And spirit doesn't necessarily have to mean like God or the shadow figures and orbs that follow me. It doesn't have to mean any of that. It's again kind of your expanded self. It is this body of consciousness or whatever. And this is all hypothetical again, but this is what I think is what you're tapping into there. It's also sort of a learned thing. I don't know if we're ever consciously learning intuition, but our intuition, part of the reason a woman is going to act very differently and have a very different intuitive sense walking down a dark street at night alone is because there is lived experience and learned experience. And even if it hasn't happened to you, you've read or know a million stories, or you know somebody that it has happened to.
And that's just another like explicit example of how we're all connected, because like you said, I don't have to experience something to learn from someone else having experience.
Well, and if that doesn't tie us back to frickin', if that doesn't tie us back to empathy.
Right. Because everything always does, because everybody should have it. And if you don't, I'm sorry, there's something wrong with you. But it's fixable. You can fix it. Work on it. Just do it.
Just be better.
But I would say the intuition versus instinct thing, I feel like, I mean, I don't have the authority to claim that humans are the only animals that experience intuition. I can only speak for humans because I am one. I would say that just after hearing you talk, that like instinct, if instinct is the goosebump or like the reaction in your body or the sensation that you would feel as an animal because of things you don't need to or be explained to you, it's just processes that your body is already privy to, even if your conscious mind is not. I think intuition would be being able to even experience or feel those sensations in your body, but then also trusting that, because I can get goosebumps walking into a place and be like, that was weird, and stay. But if I feel that and then my gut's like, okay, what did that mean? Think about it for a second. That I feel like deciding to act on it past that point would be the difference between instinct and intuition.
Well, yeah, I think intuition can override instinct in some way. I feel like if we apply this to spirit searching or something like that, right? And your instinct, your natural instinct is like, I'm in the dark and it's creepy, and my monkey brain is saying I should be scared right now because I am in danger. When the more developed part of my brain is also saying, but you're not in any current danger. You know, we're not reptiles anymore. You don't have to be scared of a lion jumping out and gobbling you up because you're literally just in an abandoned hotel room. Okay, like, you're fine. But, you know, when applying to spirit searching, there is that necessity to listen to the intuition, because it's so quick, the change from my intuition is telling me
this is not.
My intuition is telling me that nothing dark is here. I don't feel in danger. I might feel a little bit scared about certain things, but that's my, physiological response. And then that click when things do change really quick and you're like, all right, that's it. I didn't need any more. All it takes is that one little feeling in your chest where you're like, the air has shifted, the energy has shifted, and now my intuition is throwing alarm bells, and that's what it's time to,
Yeah. And there's literally a clip of us experiencing that in the Firehouse Museum video.
Yeah.
Like, actually, let's wrap it up. Intuition can aid in decision-making by integrating subconscious insights with logical analysis. I feel like it is in a human nature at this point, I guess, to just think logic is the end all be all of everything. But I find that a lot of people who are like focused on logic or obsessed with logic can be still taken to the wrong point by having like their minds abused by blindly trusting what they believe is logic. So,
well, absolutely. And that ties to what we were discussing with the gift of fear. And, you know, on one hand, what's so dangerous is when you're empathetic, it is difficult to want to trust everyone and give the benefit of the doubt to everyone. And to be empathetic, you also have to be empathetic to people, to the experience of people that have been wronged by some people, the empathetic to yourself and your experiences, and empathetic to reality and the fact that unfortunately there are very unwell people around us. And, you know, this country knows a hell of a lot about not taking care of its citizens, and that means that we have to be careful. And that, you know, listening to that intuition is not spiting empathy. It's recognizing it more than anything, I think.
and I would even go to say it's something that like has to be, or at least can be trained. I'm sure some people are probably like, my intuition's wrong. Usually I'm like, I don't know. Maybe you're hearing a no and thinking it's a yes. You know, I feel like if you can at least first acknowledge or even be able to locate whatever sensation in your body is calling you to question something that you may not be able to see with your eyes at the moment, but you feel. Feeling is everything. That is the first step to being able to feel empathy, is to be able to feel. So a lot of people try to block off what they can and can't feel. And
are encouraged to.
And we are literally encouraged to.
Full circle, coming back to religion.
Not be able to regulate our emotions, which are our feelings. And just not even knowing what we're feeling, not even being able to explain what we're feeling or why we feel that way. Just immediately trying to block it out, mask it, or pawn it off on the nearest person. I don't want to deal with that. Now it's your problem. But I feel if you just sit with your feelings more, this is just advice for people. You don't even have to say anything about it. You don't have to analyze it. Literally just sit, feel it. If you're angry, where do you feel it? In your throat? You feel it in your gut? Do you feel it like wherever you feel it? Pay attention to that. It's going to be different for everybody. And that's why I can't even I feel like trusting your gut is universally what is said about using your intuition, because there must be something there. I'm guessing it is a lot about your gut, but that's not only where you're going to feel things. If you are in tune with your body and what you feel, the more in tune you are with yourself, you'll know when you're out of alignment. So then it'll be easier to correct it, because getting back to alignment is always the goal. You're supposed to feel things, but getting back to a baseline is the goal. So if you have a baseline to begin with, it's easier. That's all I'm saying. It's easier to tell when you feel off. And that's how you can start testing or training your intuition.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's first, sitting with yourself when you can and noticing how you feel. And then also when you start getting those gut feelings, or when something like that happens, pausing and reflecting on what it feels like, why it feels that way, regardless of if your gut is right or wrong. Tuning into that will aid your decision making in the future.
It's not even about, being right or wrong is not the first thing you should be interested in with your intuition, because that's even implying that your intuition is always about life or death. Sometimes your gut can be telling you to listen to one song over another song. It's not always life and death. Sometimes it's just what your body is asking of you. And then you go, okay,
that not only makes you like that tunes you in, that's really the I'm going to use the term stepping stone again, but that really is like a building block, a stepping stone to unlocking so many other things in your life, be it
Mhm.
even just basic decision making. I have so many
Yeah, which
friends
a
who
lot of
are
people struggle with.
terrible, and this has never been my problem. Maybe it's because I am too close with my intuition, I don't know, but I have always had a strong opinion about, what I want to do, what I want to eat, what I want to believe, all of this stuff, right? I'm very good at making decisions. And I think part of that is, I don't know, what does my gut say? What does my intuition say when I'm even just trying to decide, okay, I have time for like one wiki deep dive before bed. Which wiki deep dive do I want to go for tonight? And then I'm like, well,
Mhm.
that would normally interest me, but my gut's telling me this is the one I want to click on. And I'm almost always right. It was always a better article. And, another thing that I think we can touch on really quickly regarding instinct or intuition and training that process, because I'd love to discuss how training it can be beneficial for connecting to any of your potential psychic abilities or
Yes,
mediumship or talking to spirits or
because that's why it's also the first step.
talking to your god. Like it can be so
Yeah,
many applied to so many different things.
that's why the first step is knowing yourself, because that's where then the next step is channeling. If that's where it's coming in next, I have to be able to be like, whatever I just heard was not me. And that's how mediums know that they're mediums. They're like,
Hmm.
oh, that was something else. That was somebody else.
That wasn't my head
That didn't come
voice.
from
Yeah,
me.
that didn't originate in this body.
Yeah.
It wasn't my thought. It was tapping into that pool of consciousness. Our brains are like routers, and conscience or consciousness is like Wi-Fi. You can't see it. It traverses through places and through you, but your brain is a little chip that, harnesses these bits of information and this conscience and or consciousness. I guess there's a difference. But anyway, we're processing in the brain. We're
Yeah.
living outside of the brain. We are created by the brain is created by consciousness, not the other way around. And so one way that I was for a little bit practicing developing my intuition or my sense of intuition and sense of self was really simple with a deck of playing cards. And I played this with you a little bit when I decided this is what I'm going to
Yeah.
start doing. And I haven't admittedly played it in a very long time. But if you get bored and you want, you're having trouble feeling that little, it's very hard to describe, that little like tiny little voice, something like that, that's like, it's a 7. This is an easy place to start, right? Is get start with like 3 playing cards of different suits or, faces or numbers or whatever, and shuffle them up and just go, I think this one's on top. Nope. I think this one's on top. Nope. But as you continue to do it, it is strange how you will get better at predicting what's next. And it's kind
Yeah.
of that mindless, I'm not listening to my own voice right now. I'm letting consciousness tell me what's to come. It's worth
Yeah.
it's worth a
Because
try.
if you believe, like you said, our brains are like a router, or I even like to think like radios, things that are coming into your brain or like thoughts aren't necessarily of you. They're just thoughts are popping into everybody's brain. One of my favorite anecdotes is that apparently Prince and Michael Jackson, or I don't know which one of them, I think it was Michael Jackson, said if he or like heard a song in the middle of the night, he had to get up and write it because he was scared that it was going to go to Prince before he could actually. So I think some people are getting the same thing because like if literally back to the cards, if we're both trying to figure out what one card is and we both come to the same conclusion and that is also the right answer, who's to say that we're not getting the same answer from the same source? or maybe there's a different source. Maybe I heard it. Maybe you saw it. Maybe you felt it. Like people, even how you get the answer is different for some people.
And this is not something that we're completely pulling out of our asses, for the record. The part of the reason I am most certain above everything else for why there is more in the parapsychological world that I 100% believe must exist is actually specifically because the United States government uses it. The Department of Defense uses astral projection, uses psychics and mediums. There is no chance in a million years.
That's not Christian.
I'm so sorry, but there is no chance in a million years that the United States Department of Defense, the trillion-dollar conglomerate industry that it is, right, would be putting money toward woo-woo juice stuff, okay, if it didn't have some data to support it. And
never mind the fact that every popular show about some person with a gift in which the United States government is involved, they have access to that person, willingly or not willingly. I'll leave it at that. You guys like Stranger Things, right? Where's 11? What are they doing? Who's doing what to 11? Right. That being said, I do not have any gifts of any.
You don't need to look over here. That ain't me.
I'm still practicing on playing cards. Please leave me alone.
Yeah, unless you're gonna pay me, because I'll do a lot for money right now. And then I'll throw them some, curveballs. Be like, you won't even believe what I just heard from your grandmother.
I gotta say, Long Island medium changed my life. That was the first time I ever heard of a medium.
Mine was,
I don't know what you're doing, but thank you.
Tyler Henry or whatever.
Yeah.
Is that his name?
I don't know. You're the one who tells me about him. But I don't know if I told you, but one time I was talking with my mom about this stuff. And my mom said she knew the guy you were talking about. I was like, Meredith tells me about that guy. She was like, no, yeah, he's
like, and I'm skeptical with a lot of mediums, and there are
and my mother is very religious, by the way.
So if she can recognize, and like, you don't have to be agnostic or atheist to believe in this stuff. It can coincide. It correlates significantly. There is a lot of overlap. But in fact, there's some like things even in Christianity, which like I say even in as if that's not what I was raised with, but that's what I've pushed away from for so long. But even in Christianity, there are some things that from other people's accounts, this is stuff that seems very much like this is what God is, I refer to it as the soul pool, but people have explained spirit in the past of or like meeting God, right? During near-death experiences, the way that they've described it is that it wasn't one power. It wasn't masculine or feminine. It wasn't judgmental or cruel.
Yeah, that's our thing. We're the ones that judge everything.
Right.
By the way.
It was
nothing else was doing that.
It was this almost collective of warmth and like just good energy. And often, at least in these NDE cases where they've explained that they did have, obviously it's NDE, it's not DE. NDE, by the way, stands for near-death experience for anybody who might not know. And so DE would just be a death experience. So obviously all these people did live. And as they've explained it, they were given the choice. They were given the choice to come back to their physical selves. And most of them didn't want to, which makes complete sense. And this is now getting into tangent territory, so we will have to cover this in a different episode at some point. And I'm very excited to talk about that because that's some crazy stuff. But um, yeah, you can absolutely be religious and still believe in some of this and some element of this, and like things like
Yeah.
psychics and mediums, and we're all just
I
trying
would
to
say
figure it out.
I would say most religions, if anything, are just one specific culture getting to the root of everything or whatever answer they believe, or like what avenues or activities they do to get in that space, or like understanding, like if that causes you to meditate, if that's praying, if that's journaling, if it's whatever you do, lighting incense, setting altars. There are so many different ways that people are taught and learn on their own, even to experience the same phenomena, that I just honestly think that basically everybody's saying the same thing, or at least trying to, in their own language, in their own ways, and it's not one size fits all, and that's why there are so many different avenues for people to
Well,
take spiritually and religiously, I guess.
one thing to consider too, thinking about it in the context of instinct and intuition, right, is part of what helps us attune to and align to ourselves and the spirit realm is being comfortable. Now,
Yeah.
that's very basic in the sense of like, yeah, when I'm going to try to talk to my spirit guides, or when I'm sitting down to do an Estes session or whatever, you want to be in a comfortable position. You want to be like slow
Sensory
breathe.
deprivation, certain senses.
Right, and
Yeah.
you're trying not to be overwhelmed. You want to be in a very comfortable place. This is also true for many people who do ritualistic stuff and who use religion. That is a very comforting thing for most of us who were raised religious. You know, that's something that you've been doing for as long as you can remember, whether it be prayer or lighting candles, or you know, any physical thing like singing hymns, things like that. All of
Yeah.
that is
Singing, dancing, movement of any type.
well,
Yeah.
and that is a whole other thing that we could get into too, and I'm sure we'll have future episodes on, is how movement and song is so
Yeah. And our talent show video.
oh god, it's coming one of these days. But yeah, that is all part of instinct and intuition, is like this self-comforting of the familiar, especially when you are questioning the unknown. It's a scary place to exist in the unknown. It's part of why we've created such extensive religions as we have, because we need answers. And I mean, I guess we're kind of hypocritical because our whole goal is to find some answers. But I think our goal is just as much to ask the questions that haven't been really publicly being asked. So,
Yeah. Also, the unknown, as far as like everything, obviously, we're not going to learn everything. No one knows everything. In fact, all I know is I know nothing, or whatever, all that jazz. But I feel like
Socrates.
even being able to interact with the unknown or connect with the unknown in a way that doesn't immediately like see you being frozen in fear is more beneficial than something that would just make you be afraid. Because and that's why back to the decision making process, where people are so scared to make decisions. I think a lot of people think that makes it in the unknown. If you make one decision, a lot of people think that cuts off like every other option for you. But I like to think of it more so it's like there's plenty of ways to get to the same goal. So if you have a path for your life, or a purpose for your life, or long-term goals, I wouldn't put so much pressure on individual decisions, because even if it takes a little longer, you may end up making a decision that you think is going to take you longer that makes it take shorter. I would say detach from the concept of time completely. Just be comfortable. And that's the quickest way to get to, I guess, comfort with the unknown and anything out there that we are seeking to understand that we currently don't know. My personal method for like trying to get help, answers, or whatever, so far meditating. I think a lot of people, even across the board, say meditating is a good place to start. But sometimes I don't even have to be meditating. Sometimes I'll be laying in bed. It's right before I fall asleep. A lot of the times,
you know that's my experience too. You know, I say that I don't see spirits really. Sometimes I see orbs because they follow me everywhere. But the only thing that really right before bed is when I hear full voices, like full sentence, not my voices, and I know that can be attributed to pre-dream state. It's like slipping into that dream state, but I'm still alert enough to recognize them. I'm always too tired to like write them down, and I need to start training myself to get up and write them down like Michael Jackson, so that Prince doesn't get it first.
Need your bedside dream journal. And I think it's so interesting that you hear different voices, because I only ever hear my voice. That's why it's so hard for me, because I have to be like, was that me or was it not? And I won't get into what I do, but I only hear my voice, or like even my head voice. I would say the best way I can describe like any ancestral or like cultural connection I feel, because I'll say it right here, I don't have all the answers. I think there's something going on with Black people spiritually. I don't know. I think we're special in a way, and I don't have resilience. And I think there's something that being forced to suffer at like extreme ways pushes you to grow. Not that you have to suffer to grow. Suffering is not necessary, but it's happened a lot. But I don't even necessarily think it's like result of it. I think the proof that there's something about it is that we're still here, frankly. But
to add to that and support that statement as well, there very well could be some tie to the fact that our first human ancestors were African, were Black people. Like, that feels significant.
To me too, yeah. I completely agree. And then I said the best way that I can describe it is like Aang in the Avatar state, where he's retreating into himself, but he literally has access to every avatar that came before him. I don't have it as easy because I'm not Aang, but I'm figuring it out. And that was like the coolest way I can say it. And also just how I think like spirit teams, I don't think all spirit teams helping you is necessarily related to your lineage at all. I think some people it's just like what frequency you're on, if someone's assigned to you. I don't know how it works.
I think they fully have choice, which again, we'll talk about all this in another episode.
Love that. But that would lead to the frequency thing though, because if they're like, I like this one, I feel like I can help them, and then they hang out around you, and it's like cool. And then you may outgrow people, or things like that. But also Mulan, you're familiar with it. The whole thing about Mulan is that her literal ancestors sent her a spirit dragon to help her on her journey. That does not mean that Mulan did not have to try. She had to do a lot. She had to go through a lot of stuff. But Mushu was always there doing stuff behind the scenes that she didn't have control over. And I feel like when you lean into just like trusting that your spirit team is doing stuff for you like that, it helps you just focus on what you need to be doing and not about the things that you can't control.
I just want to understand where the hell my spirit dragon is. Okay? Because...
Are you Chinese?
No.
I don't know if only Chinese people have dragons.
I don't know
where
either.
dragons are.
I don't really...
I just know Mulan is Chinese.
Well, no, they can't be, because if you think about like English and Great British and European like fables and history, they have dragons in that crap too.
They're dragons. There are dragons.
Yeah. Who came up with dragons?
God, when he made them.
Ignore everything we've said in the last hour. God does exist, and apparently maybe that's why I haven't gotten my spirit dragon, because I have been denouncing God. Well, thanks so much, everyone who may or may, well, I guess I'm only thinking the ones who may have listened. Those of you who didn't listen, how dare you? Who do you think you are? But thanks for tuning in. And we have a lot of really exciting topics that we're looking forward to talking about. Obviously, that's why they kept coming up throughout this episode. We'll be talking about astral projection and past life trauma and memories. We'll be talking about the Akashic records, out-of-body experiences, near-death experiences, aliens and other intelligences, spooky places, attachments, spirits in our lives and paranormal experiences, karmic lessons, the circle, contacting spirit guides, all kinds of exciting stuff. So
Untapped
stay
human
tuned.
abilities.
Untapped human abilities! So if you want to learn more about your sixth sense, tune in. I'd love to say that there's a regular date that we're releasing these, but currently that's not the case. But keep an eye on our YouTube channel and follow us on our socials to stay up to date on our newest queries, theories, and shenanigans.
Yeah.
Okay, bye-bye.
Okay, bye. Get out of here.
What are you doing here?
Get out.
Go home.
It's over.
It's over. Freaks.